This is The Situation Room on SpiceFM, online, on KTN Home. We have a guest in the studio. We want to talk about the cost of power, and let's see whether he's going to tell us, I told you so. We'll give him that opportunity. Before we welcome him, let me tell you today's proverb. It's an ancient Egyptian proverb. This one is like a pyramid. One does not run to reach success. One does not move to spoil it. One does not run to reach success. One does not move to spoil it.
Yep. It's true. I agree.
I will translate that
In
now
the
from
beginning,
Egyptologies to English.
In the beginning, I was a bit confused. But hey, listen, success is a steady journey, isn't it? You get there after trying and your focus. You don't get there in a hurry. Usually, they say any kind of success that you achieve after having done it really quickly is not lasting. It's not sustainable. So once you've achieved it, right, you're not in a hurry to get rid of it. You're not in a hurry to lose it. So you're going to maintain that success.
So you don't move.
You don't move. You and your success.
You have succeeded, now stay there.
You see?
Engineer Isaac Ndereva.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Do you understand that Egyptian proverb the way Ndu understands it?
I just thought around it, and I thought it's something to do with it's not good to be on the comfort zone. Generally, that's how I've picked it. I'm an engineer. I don't understand much about languages more than the formulas.
So this is a formula of success. What do you get it? What do you get from here? One does not run to reach success. One does not move to spoil it.
It's a bit complicated. One does not run to reach success. One does not stop or
Move.
One does not move to spoil it.
I'll need to do a lot of homework. I was not good in literature, in fact, but given several other examples that relate to it, I would be able to get. But at least I'm able to associate with success. Yes.
We've been seeing people posting on social media, and people just talking about the experiences. The latest cost of power seems to have risen. So if you are buying, mostly for prepaid, if you are buying X number of units for 1,000 bob, in the last month, this month you've bought, using the same 1,000 shillings, you got fewer units. Is it true?
That is true. Actually, I think the biggest problem, we are having in this country and generally in Africa, is that we do not have very good reporting, especially in the media. For example, now, people are saying that the increase was 21%. Now, when some people buy, they will realize it's not 21%. It's actually 15%.
15.
So there is 21 and 15, based on the tariff that you are in.
Okay.
I've been here severally, and I mentioned that there are two different tariffs for the domestic. There is the lifeline and there is the ordinary. Now, for the ordinary, yes, actually for the lifeline, the increase was 21%. For the ordinary, it was 15%. There are 9 other tariffs which had different increments. But of course, we don't need to dwell on the fact that it was 21% increase. There are others which increased by even less, based on the way they are normally charged. But let's not talk of the cost of power, as per se. I remember the very first time we had come around January of 2021, Kenya Power was complaining that they needed an increment of around 20%.
Yep.
Then, during the reduction, it was brought down by 23%. So let people not mistake that the increment is going to Kenya Power.
Kenya Power not a reversal. It's not a reversal of what Kenya Power did.
No.
Okay.
Because they are still having the same reduction. And the only thing that has affected this increment are the 3 components called fuel cost,
right,
forex,
right,
and inflation.
Let's look at them one by one.
Now, let me first, to make it simple for the viewers and the listeners to understand, those people who are buying, right now there are people who are buying 1,000, they are getting 51.8 units. That is down from the previous they were getting of 62.7. Now, just before the reduction to 62.7, a reduction means an increase in units. Before the reduction, they were getting 55.6. So they came from 55.6 after complaining. It was reduced, so they were getting 62.7. Right now, they are getting 51.8.
Okay.
Now,
So
that is for the
62.7
yes,
came after the January reduction.
yes,
And this is the one that was promised by the president of
Yes.
15%. So
Yes.
the 15%, when it was effected by Kenya Power in
Yes.
January,
yes,
the number of units that you'd buy for 1,000 bob
Yes.
increased from 55.6 units
yes.
to 62.7 units.
62.7.
And it has been like that for a while,
It has been like for 8 good months.
for 8 months.
Yes.
Now,
Now it is at 51.8.
and this is what you're saying, that the 11, about 10 units drop
Yes.
is because of these three factors.
Just those 3 factors and nothing more.
Cost of fuel,
Cost of fuel, inflation, and forex. Now, let me tell you what happened. In September of 2021, I like basing it on September 2021 because that is when the task force released the report.
Yeah.
And they said, yes, we can achieve that 3%.
yeah,
Between September 2021 to December, when they were now actually effecting it, there was an increase of 3% already. So when they were saying it's 15%, it was actually something to do with around 11% if you are to base it on the September cost. Now, the challenge was it was 3.88 fuel cost, and then by December, it was 4.63. Now, the biggest challenge is that they maintained the 4.63 for 8 months without even a single fluctuation. And that's why the cost of power, which has never happened in this country, has been constant for 8 months. It has been, we have studied.
despite knowing that globally,
Yes.
Oil was becoming more expensive.
Yes.
But it was not affecting the
It
Kenyan
was not
bills.
affecting. And that's why we say sometimes the government knows what it is doing. Because number two, a fluctuation of the thermal generation was expected. There are 2 factors that would have affected. The amount of thermal generation and the cost of fuel. You would have expected some change. As well as also forex. It has never been the same. Same as the Water Resource Management Authority charges, which are minimal actually.
Yeah.
But nothing fluctuated at all. That means something happened.
So does that mean the government was subsidizing?
It
the cost
was
of electricity?
subsidizing. Even when I came here, I think I tried to mention that it is not actually a reduction. It is some funding. It's a political statement.
Money that's coming from somewhere else.
It's money, actually. We were made to understand. There's, of course, some announcement or gazettement that was done for 7 billion in June to subsidize power. But other than that, they had not mentioned, they had said it is internal adjustment. But we know several agencies around which funded or which cut their bit to be able to manage that reduction. But of course, I had mentioned that it would not go beyond 8 months because the government will have gone.
Now the new
So they
government
are
has come.
gone, and I don't think we need to blame the incoming government because they have basically said we cannot survive with subsidy. Again, even IMF was trying to complain that we cannot do much with subsidy because we still need to keep on paying our loans.
Right. So looking at all, I mean, if possible for this to be compared to the other subsidy-related issues that are taking place in the country, whether we're looking at fuel prices, whether we're looking at maize, and whatever else that may have been hidden before that we are not aware of. So surely it does make sense that you remove a subsidy to allow, or rather to quote-unquote force then the market to stabilize on its own, even if it's going to be a higher price. But you say, look, this is the cost that we're going to have to pay to work on this, and let us reduce in other places. Now, the 8 months indeed have come to an end. We have seen already that these electricity prices are on the rise. So even if you can't, you will still buy for 1,000 shillings, but you're getting a reduction in the number of units then that you can have. Now, we've looked at petrol and we said one of the ways then to reduce the price of petrol is to make a deliberate decision and say, tinker with the taxes. It's not necessary to have such high taxes. Can you play around with that a little bit and see if you can bring a reduction? Can we do the same with electricity?
The same can be done, but let me mention that the electricity cost, the fuel component, is based on the previous month's consumption on the thermos. Now, people want to tie it to the increase in the prices this month, which is not true. Because the prices for last month were not increased. So we didn't expect the fuel consumption on electricity to have increased. So as a result, in fact, as a society, we had said that we would want to go to court. For the simple reason that even during elections, they said open the servers. Of course, if I would have been told to go and look at what is in the servers, I don't even know how it looks like. But now, this price component of 6.79, where does it, can you break down? Is it the fuel? Has it, because of course, that was how much? I think that was an increase of 47%. Did the fuel cost increase by 47%? No. And in fact, from September of last year to date, the fuel cost in the bills has increased by 75%. So definitely it cannot be tied to the increase in the fuel cost. And as a result, we had said that we want to go to court and claim that these people are, in fact now, fuel is taking 35%.
But let me ask you.
So where is it coming from?
Let me ask you, Ndereva.
Yes.
When we talk about what APRA announces as the regulated price of fuel every month, does it include the heavy fuels? Or is it only for diesel, kerosene, and super? Because the thermal generators are not using super or diesel or kerosene.
Yes.
They use heavy fuels.
Yes.
Is that not then directly affected by the global fuel price
I would expect, it's not something that I can confirm that I know what they gazette, whether the heavy fuels, actually they don't gazette the heavy fuels.
They don't.
But I expect that it is also affected. But even as they do that, they are supposed to tell us that this is a fuel cost. It has come as a result of, because you see in the bill, you will see forex and fuel cost are things that have been brought by the IPPs. Now, you need to ask yourself, how has it moved from one point to the other, and who is that watching for Wanjiko to say that now we have taken fuel costs from 3.88, then we are at 4.63 for 8 months, then we are at 6.79. You need to be explained to. You need to open servers and say this, and this is what has moved.
Okay, so and what I'm hearing is, for example, when we look at the prices of fuel, I think in terms of details, I'm going to use this as an example because that's what we have. When we look at the details, we see this is what the landed cost is, right? We see that this is the tax that comes from 1, 2, 3. We see that this is road maintenance levy and it's applied there. We see that there's another tax. So if we see an increase between August 14th and September 14th, we see very clearly what those numbers are and where the increase has come from. So are you saying that with the electricity costs, the increase that we saw from August to, let's say, the 1st of August until the about 10th of September, when folks started to complain about this increase, that we cannot see very clearly where the increase is coming from?
It's not, you cannot see. Nobody is making any deliberate attempt to
but
make
should
the
they?
public.
I mean, look, who is, this is a deal between two people who are in contracts. This is the independent power producer, the thermal independent power producer, and the person who's purchasing from them, Kenya Power. Now, if you told me that Kenya Power do not know the basis for this kind of billing from the independent power producers, and you told me that is what you know for sure, then I'd be listening to you. But now, you also don't know. You don't know how they bill, how the IPP actually sends its bill to Kenya Power.
And
whether the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority is involved in that when it comes to the cost of, because landed cost, what we know, what IPRA tells us, is landed cost of those three, what we use, kerosene, diesel, super. We don't talk about landed cost for heavy. So heavy oil, obviously, is coming from the same traders who would then sell to the independent power producers. If the oil marketing companies that are regulated and operate under IPRA are selling heavy fuel to independent power producers at X amount of money, just ask IPRA or ask Kenya Power.
I think
how much have you bought how much have these guys billed you?
Should we be asking them?
Yeah.
Why should because I mean, there is a deliberate attempt to say the dollar is this amount today, the euro is this amount on the papers.
But Kenya Power does not tell you how much the dollar is going for.
It's okay, but
it is you get that from the central bank.
Yes.
Because the central bank is giving this other information for the financial sector.
I think you are trending dangerously, Eric, because you want to trust on some people to be on the lookout for the public. And we are saying that is where we are failing.
I'm not trusting. I'm just saying that if you haven't gotten the information, just say you have not asked for the information or you haven't gotten the information.
But why?
But don't impute improper motive.
Okay. We've made our own research and checked and seen that the deal between EPRA, Kenya Power, and IPP, I guess those are the major players.
Yeah.
Now, but the biggest player here is the consumer.
Yes.
Now, who is this checking that surely that is true? Because we want to trust EPRA, but you see, EPRA is not IEBC. It's not an independent body. Of course, it operates under the Ministry of Energy. But I from the task force, I don't know whether it was gazetted, that they should not be listening to anybody else. It should be independent. But I am not sure of how independent they are for them to come out and say, we've checked on all the players and we've seen really this is going to be the cost. And why we are smelling some fishy deals is, ever since we were trying to look at the prices from 2008. Let me tell you something shocking. From 2008, the last time we had the highest cost of electricity in the bills, I mean fuel cost, was in November 2011. It was 9.33. The next highest was in July 2014, which was 7.22. Of course, in May 2016, it has been 2.31. It has been 5.35 in March 2018. Then it has come down just June 2020 because of the COVID effect. It was around 2.4. So you can see it was being affected by the load, the national load, because there was people are not taking up. So the thermos were not coming up, but also the fuel cost was cheaper. Now, after all that, it's only in July 2014 it was 7.22. Right now it is 6.79. Now I wanted to ask, isn't that some information that you need to come out with a press conference or even tell people we are EPRA or you can't even say we are Kenya Power. Let's say this is the Ministry of Energy. We've come to tell the people that due to this and this, the price of power, more than 50% of your bill will be taken out by forex and fuel cost. Because of this and these reasons. And then from there, that's the time we are going to come as a society and ask, have you looked at this? And can you open the server so that we can be able to see what are the components that has led to that amount? Because even a shilling matters, isn't it?
That's true.
Sure. Now, because for the 8 months we've seen that there was subsidy. Where was that subsidy going? To which IPPs? To which fuel? I mean, that is a challenge we've been having.
Long shot in order for somebody to tell you then where this subsidy went to.
Yes.
Look, Isaac, being practical, how would it help? To know what those numbers are, to know where the increase has come from, how would it help then?
Now, let me start from this government that has come in, has said that it requires very strong opposition. Now, you cannot be in opposition without information. We are not really deliberately coming to oppose. What we are saying is, we need this information so that even for the benefit of the consumers that we represent, we can tell them everything is... Like now, when the fuel cost went up, people complained a bit. But much as they complained, they were made to understand the reason as to why they'll have to stay with that. Now, even us in electricity, we will need to say, listen, Kenya Power have actually reduced their cost. From the reduction of 23%, they are still that low. Now, what has affected us, because it is actually myself who is trying to explain what are the components that have led to the increase. Now, we want to delve down inside into the fuel cost so that we can also tell the consumers the thermos have gone up the generation. Why? Because we don't have this generation in these areas and this. Why? Because that is how the public will make a certain body accountable.
Yep.
Who is sleeping on the job? Is it that the CEO there went to be the governor? So that we understand. Now, the fuel cost came as a result of increased thermos. The fuel cost went high, the cost itself per liter,
Yep.
or even those whatever fuel they use.
The heavy fuels.
The heavy fuels. Now, from there, we can be able to say, our consumers, stay calm.
This is what is happening.
This is what is happening.
Okay.
Who is doing that?
You,
Yes.
as the association that represents electricity consumers,
Yes.
you have that mandate. That's the mandate that you have to your members. Now,
Yeah.
accountability starts with you.
Yes.
As the executive director of the Electricity Consumer Society of Kenya,
Yes.
have you studied, number one, all the laws that are governing this sector?
Yes.
The law governing Kenya Power, the law governing IPRA, right? To see that they are required to provide this information. Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? And have they not been doing so? For example, is Kenya Power required by law to report to the regulator IPRA on its billing monthly?
Yeah.
Is IPRA mandated to come to us? So that now you'd be saying, we are demanding on behalf of our members that IPRA, you do what you're supposed to be doing, which you haven't done. That's accountability number one on your part.
Yes.
Accountability number two, have you reached out to IPRA and Kenya Power to understand why is the cost of electricity going up, or why had it not risen at all for 8 months?
Yeah, well, let me start from the end of saying we had some very serious gatekeepers from the previous government. And those gatekeepers, sometimes I would say they didn't have information. Or they didn't even know what was happening. It's like they were operating on opinion polls, even on such, where you would want to ask someone, why is the fuel cost on this very flat? Then they will say it had been subsidized. Then you will ask them, how did they know the fluctuations for the subsidy to be enough? You expect some deficit in the subsidy because you had not foreseen this. Now, those same people has been very complicated to go beyond. Now, with this new government, we have made some few schedules of how to go about it. Of course, we'll be waiting for the new CS of energy. We have several people in energy, Minister of Energy, we talk to. But still, they will still say, let's wait for what is going to happen. Of course, we expect the new CS, if it is not myself anyway. I haven't received any missed call from the president.
Sure.
But in case it's going to be someone else, we have made some deliberate schedules to go and meet them. We are also trying to farm up our legal team because we've realized that we have some faith in the courts now. And what you are asking us to do, we may have to demand legally that this is what you're supposed. Even Kenya Power have got some training or awareness department.
Yep.
They even have a budget. Now, that budget should be given to us because such a person from Kenya Power is the one who is supposed to be sitting here, isn't it? Now, since that is not happening, we'll now have to demand those services to come to the public. When we go to EPRA, we'll try to see, of course, for them we've been seeking audience severally. We've even looked at, have you looked at what are these losses we are talking about? All those guys we've been talking to. So, with this new era, we don't have very many gatekeepers. Of course,
Yet.
Yet. But, at least from the previous one, there were many people who are just sitting. You wouldn't know what is of course, you would expect even Morale to say, we are not increasing power. Then you ask, which position is this guy? Then you don't understand. Right now, we don't have anybody we know. And the people who are already surrounding the current president do not have some political debts or baggage. All the people who are surrounding him, of course, have gotten their own positions. So you can only resign. So, but if it was the other regime, you would have to find, what do I do to Kemunya? What do I do to Kioni? So you will find them saying something. Right now, we don't have such. We are very sure that we are going to reach them. We've, of course, started interacting with some of them who are closer to the president. And I am sure with his new, I think he has failed the power and he has forgotten that we are the people who are taking him there, I am sure he'll be able to listen and we are going to rise with him.
All right.
Yes.
Davis Churchill works closely with the president. He's a former CS for energy.
He's a former CS
so
for
he
energy.
understands this matter. Approach him, ask him.
Of
Bwana
course
Churchill, before we know who the minister is going to be, at least you understand. If we ask you this question, you
can
understand.
answer us.
You understand the question. Find out for us. Let's take a break.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Conversation continues with Engineer Isaac Ndereva talking about power bills and what ought to happen. You're explaining to us that what we are seeing now in the rise in power bills is not necessarily because the government is clawing back on what it had done in January, which was lower the... What had Kenya Power done? Lowered the what?
Kenya Power were given some money to manage the drop. Now, what is dangerous right now is that...
So in January, Kenya Power were given money to actually...
to cover up for the reduced cost.
Because we're supposed to be dealing with the system losses.
Yes. Now, remember, the team that was formed was because of the PPAs.
Yes.
Now, those PPAs are the ones that bring Forex.
The power purchase agreements.
Yes. They are the ones that bring Forex and fuel cost.
Yes.
Now, those ones, right now, they are giving around 40, they are taking about 40% of the portion of the bill, those two, of the bill on the domestic lifeline portion. Now, the challenge that you will be having is to expect, Kenya Power were told to reduce and then they will be paid because we are still in discussion with these guys.
Okay.
Which has not materialized. And I don't even expect them to
materialize.
Yeah, it will not. So now, we are back to the same cost, yet we have not gone to the amount. Kenya Power is not getting what it was getting, and there is no subsidy. So what do you expect? That Kenya Power will start complaining that you made us reduce this, that was the outgoing government,
So
now you have the new government.
Revert.
You will have to revert our cost, and then while we are at that point, we start bargaining on how you can increase another 20% because that is where they were in 2020.
Right.
Now, that has not gone back there. So the big change is because of the fuel cost, inflation, and Forex.
Why would it be so big, yet a bulk of the power that we consume, that's generated in the country and sold to Kenya Power, comes from hydro, geothermal, that are basically Kenyan.
And wind.
The independent power and wind from Kenyan. The independent power producers are contributing just about 20 to at most 20% of the power into the grid.
Those are some of the questions that we want to go through and ask them, can you give us the generation mix for the last 8 months? Because there was this variation, what was the problem with this? Then we go to, of course, Kenyan. Then we ask them, what were the plants that were operating and what were the reasons? The reason as to why they were not operating, why should that spill over to the consumer? Because those are the questions we should ask as a society.
Yeah.
Why are these inefficiencies spilling back to the consumers? So, but of importance is this information, because we are making a deliberate attempt to inform consumers, yet we are not even funded by the government. Doesn't the government have such an organ? Unless, of course, we are told that it is our mandate. And so we should be getting some compensation from the government.
Sure.
Yeah.
But even as you look at it, because, at the end of the day, the question then for many folks today is then, how does this come down? When you look at industry, when you look at those who, because the truth of the matter is, when you look at somebody spending 1,000 shillings, they're hoping that it's going to carry them for some time. So the question is, how then? Because you looked at the numbers, you know the formula on, tip of your fingers almost. So then, what ought to be applied to bring these numbers down? If we're looking at an affordable cost of living, if we're trying to make sure that industry is able to survive beyond the overheads that they've got to pay, power being one of them, the biggest, power being one of the biggest, what then must be applied for these things to come down? Where do we have to tighten the screws?
Thank you, Ndu. Now, let me first say that there was a slight attempt to go to the right direction in January because they stopped the taxation on inflation and Forex. Just those two. So they are now taxing the consumption, the energy charge, and the fuel cost. That is still big anyway. But it's good they dropped the taxation of inflation and forex. Now, if they would drop taxation on any of the remaining two, if not possible to drop for both, I'm sure the government is now looking for money anyway. So we do not expect that they can drop at once. But yes, as I had said previously, the government may decide that if they are subsidizing production, as they say, why don't they drop the taxation on power? Because it's a very key factor in primary production. Now, that is what needs to be done first. But number two, this discussion of the IPPs, I think we'll need to face it head on. I'm sure there are some radical actions that were taken by the president, the current president, to reverse the port operation. That was radical, of course.
Yep.
Even this one of saying, we have shut down IPPs, all of them. Let us have some, what is it called? When you don't have enough power, you can have some that are shut off. Yeah. Then we start bringing them one by one based on how they accept the new conditions. Unless, of course, he is also entangled with the negotiations thereabout, isn't it? But if he has nothing to do with the IPPs, he should first say, the first thing I want is to say, I don't want any generation by thermos. Those IPPs can be shut off. What we are going to do for now, we are going to provide the capacity charge. And that is supposed to be around 3 shillings, I guess, factoring in the new cost of thermos. And actually,
don't take in any power.
We
from
don't take in. And by the way, we will not even be affected by the cost of the fuel because you see now they are not utilizing any fuel. So it's only capacity charge to allow for discussion. And then we tell them what we need to do since you've decided that you cannot abide with the new regulations, we are paying you off. Leave our grid.
How much would that cost us?
It needs to be worked out, but definitely it's more expensive. It's less expensive than what the consumers are buying. We may be added like a shilling for like 5 months, and then maybe that is going to be enough to pay them off.
How many independent power producers operating on thermal are there in the country?
There are many. I need to look at that, but there are many.
Okay.
All I know is
how many of them are independent? How many are owned by Kengen? Or have some Kenyan shareholding? That is thermal power producers.
Thermal, I know of, at least in Kipevu, they own Kipevu 1 and 3.
Yep.
I know I think in Sondu, and there are several they have shut down. But at least I know those 2 are still operational.
Okay.
Because they are also trying to get into other mixes. They have the biggest, portion in the generation.
Yeah.
So it is not complicated for them to shut off. But even those ones do not have a problem. Remember when I was here, their general mix of how much they sell to Kenya Power was 5.48.
Yep.
These other IPPs was bringing the cost to 8.2. You get? So I may not have a problem with the thermos being done by Kengen, but I will have a problem with the rest. The Triumph Power, those
Why?
other people. Because, of course, during their negotiation when they were coming on board, there were several people who were negotiating and they had interest. Now, they may have left with that government. So the incoming government, I don't see a lot of people because I don't think much as Ndinyoro is said to be having a lot of shares in Kenya. I am not sure whether he has ever sat to negotiate for that.
The cost
So
of
I am
power.
sure he may even be happy when they take that radical decision, so that we can get some money to give Kenya Power more life. Otherwise, as per now, the cost that we are paying them, it cannot sustain them without more subsidy. And of course, we said not to subsidy. So we will either have to shut off all those IPPs, and we tell them we have no business with you. We are going to pay you. And of course, maybe we can even tell the same way we talked about fuel, that we are going to suffer for some few months. But then eventually, we are going to be free. Right now, we also need to tell, and that is where, in fact, the society was trying to come in, because we wanted to make that suggestion and compel them to tell them, let us find a way of communicating to the citizens or the public that we have these IPPs to release. They need this amount of money. Can we agree that we lodge like 2 shillings for like 10 months? And then eventually they may have to.
The question is, Ndereva,
yes.
Because we talk about, IPPs as if, these are rogue entities that have just come in and they are like leeches, just fleecing us and milking us dry.
Yes.
But are they? Are they necessary in provision of electricity, in making sure that there's a stable supply of power? Are they or are they not? If you look at our energy mix, we've got hydro, which has always been the largest.
Yes.
Then we have got geothermal, which has come up and it's become big. Then the rest now is wind, solar a little bit, and thermal power generators.
Yes.
Thermal, hydro, and geothermal
Yes.
are still the largest.
Yes.
This is Kengen.
Yes.
We've got the largest wind power farm in Africa. I think it's still one in operation.
Yes.
Lake Turkana.
Yes.
It's doing about, 130 megawatts or so.
Yeah. It's intermittent.
And then we've got the big solar farm in Garissa.
Yes.
And then we've got the thermals, strategically located in various parts of the country.
Yes.
Are they contributing a substantial amount to the grid? Such that if we say shut them down, today Kenya Power can decide, I'm not buying power from you, shut it. I'm just going to pay you the capacity fee. They can actually survive, and we will not complain about lack of power.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, that we'll have to communicate to the public on two things. That you will get some power outages sometimes, but this is the reason we are trying to work on it. And then you may have a higher cost, but for this particular time. But let me answer your question about how they assist. They are important because most of the sources you have tried to mention is only geothermal, I would say, that is a bit stable.
Steady.
The rest are intermittent because, like wind, remember people are trying to say that we have 310 megawatt in Lake Turkana without remembering that that is on full capacity. And so you can only get around 130. And when wind goes down, so you cannot depend on it so much. Solar, of
and
course.
And if wind comes at night,
yes,
when
everything is
you can't even predict. And for the planning in Kenya Power, for the demand planning, they will still need to know how much am I assured of. So in case of such intermittency, the thermals are the ones that come in.
Okay.
So you may, but we may not have to do with all of them. There are some that you will just look at the intermittency. How much have they come in? Because sometimes you may realize that much as we talk of, they are normally prioritized based on the consumption, the efficiency of consumption. You may still find that some have really been out of business for some time, and then much as their consumption is not okay, they will still be told, pata hii kidogo, and then at least you survive a bit because they still have employees to pay. But it is still possible to do without them. Because if you look at when we didn't have geothermal, at least there is the Orcaria geothermal 4. It's called additional unit AU. Is the newest. Now it provided 280 megawatt. If we would have substituted directly, we say these were the IPPs. We need to remove 280. That did not happen
because now we have 280 steady geothermal.
Yes. Number two. I am sure there is an investor, even if it is going to be a PPP, that can develop geothermal, more wells, and we get rid of those IPPs. It is still possible. Because we are saying the other challenge we got is because much as we have been able to generate 280 using a steady supply, remember the contracts were 20 years. And so they are the leeches you are saying, because they will still stay here. They cannot get out because
they've got to recoup their investment.
So, Isaac, there's a possibility of having an alternate source of power. From what you're saying. To get away from the stranglehold of these other providers, as it were, because of this long contract of which you do not even know what
transpired
in terms of that agreement. So there actually is an alternative solution. Geothermal, for example, vis-a-vis hydro, whereby you can have transparency, as it were, in terms of exactly what it is, have a lower price in terms of what you pay, and we could essentially then see, because of the alternate use and some transparency, thrown in here and there, we could actually see lower electricity costs.
That is what we are saying. There are even very many other stable options that can come in. But remember, these IPPs, someone has to look at where do they go, where do we take them, and they still have 15 more years. I think that is a challenge that we are having, and that's the biggest challenge. That, having talked about IPPs in one of the areas to reduce power, there is another one that has been ailing us for a long time. The transmission losses, which are comprised of commercial and technical losses, are 24%, the highest in this region. Now, when you want to look at can you open the servers of these losses, you will say technical losses is because of the last mile connectivity. That you are trying to transmit power using a long cable.
Taking it to somebody's doorstep.
Yes, and they may not be able to pay back those losses. In fact, you may be losing more power trying to take power there, and you still have to pay as Kenya Power. The other one is commercial losses. Commercial losses are comprised of people who are stealing power. And sometimes because you don't steal power, you may not understand what happens. One of the problems, let me start by the big industrial consumers. Sometimes they don't have, if you have applied for a meter in your house, a new house, you'll be told to wait for the meters to come.
Yep.
And you will wait until they come.
That's when you'll get power.
Yes. In these big industrial consumers, they will not be told there is no meter. They will be connected as you wait for the meter. Then when the meter arrives, you will have to approximate
how much consuming.
Yes. If it is an approximation, it's a decision to be taken by someone. It is not it's not a machine that recorded. It's someone to sit and decide this is what I think. That is where people cut deals. So that is the first theft. The other theft is this approximation, or I would say you've realized there are very many people who realize that this meter has got a pending bill of like 180,000.
Yep.
So the best thing is to get another meter.
So you retire this meter.
You retire that meter. Of course, Kenya Power, they have a way of trying to come for you. But if you are able to talk to them, I don't know. Definitely there must be some people who are able to tell them, oh, never mind here, we will do this and that. I can realize that there is they are trying to tighten more. But that is still so commercial losses are actually 49.
Commercial losses are fraud.
They are fraud. And they are 49% of the total losses. The other one is 51. Now, that means it is taking 11% of the losses. Now, that 11% per year is costing 12 billion. That 12 billion is the subsidy we are getting per year.
And where does it go?
Sorry?
Where does it go?
They are with the individual consumers. You've kicked back a Kenya Power person to keep quiet. You've approximated because the meter had not arrived, such. So that is where the 12 billion that is being subsidized is ending somewhere. But I guess what we'll need to require to do is that, one, as a proposal, is that we'll need to do auditing, an independent audit of those meters. I think it is supposed to be, of course, done by EPRA, for example. But I am not sure. They have a very big mandate. But the government must deliberately try to say, we want to see how much power goes to that, how is the billing. And of course, I have even seen Kenya Power trying to do metering of HT, or high tension current, so that they can be able to account for their power, that those people have been paying this amount, but actually the power that has gone there is this amount. But they may not be able to go to each doorstep to look at. Once they identify that, yes, we are losing over 10%, how then is the next step of looking at who is stealing this power? So we will need such people to go around. Like, you know how effective those people who have not paid for parking in Nairobi. That kind of inspection. That is the same inspection that we require in Kenya Power.
Yes. Someone is asking about the monopoly of Kenya Power. Do you think having another power provider, last mile power provider, would help?
It would help a lot.
If you open up the space and say, so yeah, we have.
In fact, it was opened up by the Energy Act. And they said anybody can come and buy power in bulk and then distribute. Now, the challenge is, which are the distribution lines? The wayleave that was provided by the government to Kenya Power, they are saying is Kenya Power's PO and wayleave. But remember, that is public property.
It's a public utility, yes.
So even any other should come and still use the same wayleave.
On the same wayleave.
But now, again, the conflict of that your cables have to be this distance from ours. We require more wayleave. At the same time, you will need to ask yourself, how do you deal with the fact that now there is this consumer who has been wired up to his household and then I need to provide this wire for this other utility. That is a complication that nobody is trying to tell us. Of course, there are many regulations that are supposed to be done from the Energy Act, and I know they had, I think EPRA had around 13 regulations. Now, for this one, I don't know who is supposed to develop. But now with the new regime, we are very sure that we will be involved, and we'll be able, in fact, most of this, the 5 years that are coming, you might see us more in courts than in this studio, because of not agreeing on some few things.
Okay.
Because the policing that needs to be done on this government has to be for a collective responsibility. Yes.
And really quickly, because we're running down the clock, but in terms of solar as an option,
Yes.
I mean, quite rudimentarily, people have said, well, you know, the sun is there in Kenya, on the African continent, you know, throughout the year. Why not exploit the option of using solar as a power, as a power option? Why hasn't that been looked into a lot more?
I think it's the investment that is normally a challenge. It is solar is costly with a payback period of more than 6 years. Number two, the biggest load in Kenya comes at around between 7 and 9 p.m. There is no solar. Unless now you store that power.
You store it, yes.
So that is a challenge with solar. And any intermittent supply cannot assist you in planning. So that becomes a challenge. Yeah.
As we wind down the clock, engineer.
Yes.
So you've told us inflation,
Yes.
forex, and this is because of the dollar and how the dollar is behaving,
Yeah, for the IPPs being paid.
and the international oil prices.
Yes.
Apart from the international oil prices that have now started just coming down,
Yes.
and they may not come down very much, everything else is going up. So are we expecting that our power is actually going to cost more, even going into next month, into December?
It might cost the same price for the next 8 months because it's also a political decision that has been made. But we will be trying to, we have a lot of discussions we have to do with everybody concerned. And we'll be able to come back and say that, yes, we have been promised that power will be this price at around this time.
All right.
Yes.
Isaac Ndereva, thank you very much for speaking to us today, joining us. He's the Executive Director of the Electricity Consumer Society of Kenya, a power billing analyst